So welcome. Jamie Hernandez here, founder of Breakthrough Yoga Coaching Method, helping you grow, helping you grow financially and emotionally, so that you can bridge a gap between your spiritual practice and your business. So the very first thing I want to ask you is what happens when there is a problem in your business? And just blurt it out, write it down in the comments. One, do you immediately go into like DEFCON 1, you're in anxiety and you're really, anxious to fix the problem? So is that you? You just write me in the comments, you're number one. Number two, you numb out, you get overwhelmed, and you feel like, maybe you want to, run away to a tropical island or hide under your covers. Are you number two? Or number three, do you give it space and do you let the answers come to you? So are you one, two, or three? And maybe you're a version of all three. So just let me know in the comments. And I'm just going to see here if I can see your comments on my phone. I'm again in a new setup. So I'm still using StreamYard and hopefully everything is going well. All right. We got some funky lighting, but we'll have to figure that out. Okay. So today's topic, why I think it's really important to workshop with you is it's called the 3 levels of consciousness when making decisions in your business. If you are here live, then just hashtag live, let me know, and I promise I'm going to workshop with you live, or I'm going to come back and answer all your questions. And if you're here for the replay, hashtag replay, because again, I promise I'm going to read all your questions so that we can continue the coaching journey together. So as a spiritual entrepreneur, your focus wants to be on the vision of your business and on growth. If you have a lot of other focuses, you want to start to recognize as a spiritual entrepreneur really what it is that you're here to do. So you want to focus on your vision and on your growth, and that takes decision making. And pretty much we are in constant decision making. So we may as well become the masters of our decision making. And so it's important to know where exactly you are making those decisions from. And that's what we're going to talk about today, the 3 levels of consciousness when making decisions in your business. So I want to hear you, okay? I'm just going to repeat the first question. What happens when you have a problem in your business? So let's say, for example, you're about to hit the hay and you're all good and you had a really productive workday, and all of a sudden you decide to check something on your phone and you realize, oh shit, there's something going on at work. And immediately what happens? Do you go into a panic mode? Do you start getting anxious? Do you start to feel like you need to fix it right away? Okay, just let me know if that's you, number one. Okay, or have you ever done this? Right, we've all done that. Or number two, do you just numb out and you're just like, oh my god, I just want to quit. I think I should do something different. I think I should just go on vacation. I don't know. I'm just gonna like sleep it off for the next 10 hours. Or do you read that apparent emergency with a sense of spaciousness, and perhaps maybe you give it a bit of space, you wait it out, and you let the answers come to you? So here is the funny thing about our clients. Most of our clients are experts in their field, meaning to say that they are coaches coaches for ADHD. They're coaches to help veterans from PTSD. They're, music therapists that help heal childhood trauma. They're, coaches that help people with anxiety attacks. So they're these experts and they're aligned with their zone of genius. It's almost this thing that has always been the thing that they've been moving themselves through, and also moving their friends through, moving their clients through, and moving people. They simply know through this journey in their zone of genius. So let me know if you feel like you have a zone of genius, and you are simply compelled by that purpose, by that mission. Okay. But the funny thing is, when it comes to their business, their so their level of consciousness when they're in their zone of genius is it just like flows through them. It's just natural. You begin to speak, you begin to teach, you begin to work with your clients, and all of a sudden you're in this zone, in this flow. There's just this natural channeling that is moving through you, right? Let me know if that is you. And so the funny thing is, all of our clients, they have that natural ability to be in their zone of genius, and they're just in that flow, because that's what the zone of genius is, right? When you're in flow, right? And ideally in your spiritual practice, in your spiritual business, if you're making it your business, it's something that makes you money, right? And of course, it needs to be something that you love, right? Because otherwise it's just not sustainable. Okay. It can't just be this like trendy, good idea, because in the long term, it's just not going to be sustainable. So the funny thing is, they're in this high state of consciousness, allowing the work to flow through them. And they're almost compelled, even maybe they sometimes feel like they didn't really want to do this, but they just can't help themselves. And they continue on in that journey in their business and in their life and in their own spiritual practice. But when it comes to their business, that same flow, that same ability to tap into your intuition, that same ability to hear your soul's calling, that same ability to just allow things to move through you, it just simply is it's separated. It's just not there. Okay, so let me know if I remember when I first started a year ago with these lives, I asked people, what does your spiritual practice, look like, and how do you feel about your spiritual practice, and how do you feel about your business? And often what people would say is, my spiritual practice, I'm in flow. Like it's where, I'm most comfortable. It's the thing that I love. But when it comes to business, I remember specifically one of our clients, she said, I feel like a fish out of water. Okay. So it's super interesting that we have these both abilities, right? To tap into that flow, to tap into our intuition, to allow things to move through us. And yet we have a hard time bridging that gap into our business. And so that's what I want to teach you guys today. So one of the things that we can start to understand is that there are 4 levels of spiritual growth. I'm going to get into the 3 levels of consciousness, but the 4 levels of spiritual growth by Michael Beckwith is: 1, you feel like life is happening to me. There is some sort of story, there's some sort of blame, there's some sort of reason why your practice, your business is not working so well, right? So things are happening to me. Yeah. Number 2, you are the creator, and you start to understand the laws of manifestation, and things start to happen for me, right? So things start to happen for me. And often when we're starting out in our spiritual practice, especially we start to do this and allow ourselves to move out and offer it to our community, we start to trust that, there's often this sense of things happening for me. You start to realize, oh my gosh, okay, there's this opportunity and that opportunity. And you start to allow those opportunities to come in, and you even co-create those opportunities, okay? And then number 3 of stages of spiritual growth is you are like a channel, right? Where you utilize your practice, whatever that is. Could be singing bowls, it could be meditation, it could be working with energy, it could be journaling, it could be understanding certain mental processes. Like you all have your certain healing modalities, and they could be very similar, but it's in your own unique experience. And so things come through you. You know, have you ever been with a client where, all of a sudden you're both just in this flow and just naturally what you need to say or what needs to be said is said? Does that ever happen to you guys? Right? So raise your hand if that ever happens, and let me know in the comments, because essentially that's when things are happening through you. I always say that the teaching arises when the student and the teacher are together. So yes, there's teaching that arises when we are in our own spiritual practice. But if you decide to do this and share this with your community, which I feel is an energy that naturally starts to happen, because when we kind of take all of that zone of genius and we keep it for ourselves, it's almost like there's too much energy and we don't allow it to expand. So it almost becomes this contracted energy. Okay. So if you ever knew somebody who has a lot of knowledge in something but never shares it, it's almost like this nervous, contracted energy. Okay, just let me know if that ever you ever see that. Where someone's so knowledgeable about something and so natural, but yet there is this kind of insecurity. There is this kind of excuse of why it's not happening. And again, it's not like you have to, but sometimes it happens in that way where the energy it's kind of being held. So what happens when the teacher and the student are together, there's this natural flow of energy. All right. And then the last one of the levels of spiritual growth is things are happening as me. Okay. And so very often our clients are naturally in the channeling state and naturally in things that are happening as me. And you really notice this, like, for example, if you're a movement kind of somatic healer, where, naturally the movement in the body happens as you, or if you're in sound, it's happening, it's channeling through you, but it's also just happening as you, where whatever needs to come to the surface, whatever needs to come to surface for that healing and the transformation to occur for your group or for your clients naturally happens. And so this is naturally what happens when we're in that zone of genius. But then what's really funny is a lot of our clients, when they're working on their business, they're often unconsciously in the victim mode. Things are happening to me. Maybe it's the government's fault. Maybe it's, these prices are too high. Maybe people don't want to pay. Maybe, there's a lot of things are not happening because it's some external thing happening. And then they're still trying and mastering how to become creators of not just, this gift that they have, but also creators of their business, and how to allow that to nourish themselves in their bank account, in their day-to-day life, and with their clients and as they're running their business. Because we've all seen that healer, and we've all been that healer where we are overworked and underpaid. And then what happens is nobody benefits, because what happens, we start to show up, from a place where we're resisting, or we're fatigued, or we're not fully able to create that clarity or have that channel come through us, because we're not nourished, because we're constantly dispensing our energy in so many different places. Let me know if that is been you. Okay. I think it's a natural thing, because it's also interesting, and that in our community there can, and I'm not saying this is the general consensus, but sometimes there can be a lot of unconscious or even a narrative that as a healer, or as a yogi, as a meditator, we shouldn't want worldly goods, right? We should detach from worldly goods, or we shouldn't want money. And there's a lot of shame around receiving, right? And so that can create some sort of block, and also it can start to spark that consciousness, which is of the victim, which is of the misunderstanding of how to create abundance in your life. Okay, so here are the three levels. So I'm going to go through them now. The three levels of consciousness when making decisions in your business. Number one, it's a separation consciousness, right? We feel separate. The thing is coming from a false sense of identity, or what we can even call the ego. But I don't like to use these kind of typical jargon, because then already our minds start to think it understands what's happening. But basically, it's a separation of consciousness, which, and this is what I've learned from my mentor, Chris Duncan, can look like this. So there are 6 false identity structures. One, and none in any order. One, and let me know if one of these are for you. Write in the comments if you resonate. 1, I am not enough. 2, I am not worthy. 3, I am not significant. 4, I'm not perfect, right? This is something where it's like, when I finally get better, when I finally, do this thing exactly how it's supposed to be, then I'm going to do it. I'm not worthy is like, no, I don't, I'm not really going to charge for what I do, because, I don't really think people really want to pay me, or I'm not enough, where it's like, yeah, I think I need to get another like certificate, like, which is like they already have like 100 under their belt before I am enough to really like do the thing I want to do, right? I am not significant. It's that sense of needing to be seen, to be heard, and it's a wound often from childhood, where the child needed to be seen as who they are. And we know, often, if you are a spiritual entrepreneur, you often are the one that has a different dimension of thinking, right? And then if our family members have a certain more conventional way, we may not feel the significance, or the thing that we feel that is dear to our heart. It's not being seen, it's not being heard, it's not being felt. Okay. 1, I don't belong. So there's this constant sense of looking for your tribe. Who do you belong to? And this often happens when you're being moved around a lot, or when often I with some of my people I know, it's like they have they're from 2 different religions, or 2 different ethnical backgrounds, and they never know whether they're African enough, or Scottish enough, or what I mean. And so it's like it's this sense of like, where do I belong? Where do I belong? Because I'm not fully accepted here, or I've never felt fully accepted here. I've never felt fully accepted here. I'm not sure, right? And then I am not capable, right? Just this sense that I'm just never going to know how to do this. I just don't know how to do this, right? So let me know in the comments if any of those resonate for you, because that is this identity that starts to form with the messages we received when we were simply moving from our pure self. Okay? So let me give you an example. And often one of the symptoms is that we have a chronic emotion that continues to occur whenever we move towards our vision, and whenever we move and into growth. Okay, so one of our clients, Nancy, one of her chronic emotions was doubt. and we did this whole interview with her, the power of premium coaching, and just scroll down and you'll see. And when she realized that, she started to realize how that literally affected everything in her business. She literally would always have 1 step forward and then 2 steps back. And here's where it gets super interesting. And the work that we do, if we were to work together, gets super interesting, because I can easily say, oh, of course, be confident. And these are the ways of being confident and not doubting yourself. You're amazing. But when we really went to the root of that chronic emotion, that doubt, that thing that was imprinted in her physical body, in her mental landscape, and the thing, when something's imprinted in your mental landscape, anytime something outside of you looks like that, it's going to reoccur. Anytime something feels like that, it's going to reoccur in the body, and you're going to feel like you need to protect yourself. And there's also an energetic imprint, which kind of feels like a gripping around. There's a spinning, and maybe your mental energy is spinning around it, but also there's kind of like a grip, a contraction in the body. So one of the very first things we do when you start to work with me is we do what we call the 3-level clearing. So we literally start to clear what has been imprinted in the body, mind, and energy. And so when we start to further all right, so this happened last week, so we might have to think of another solution. So, all right. So the thing that, and, okay, is it happening now? All right. Okay. So I think it's working again. Sorry about that. All right. So what we start to realize when we went into Nancy's body, when we went into Nancy's mind, when we went into Nancy's energy, we started to realize that there was a moment in her childhood where her father was an alcoholic. Her mother, of course, would constantly kick her father out. And so, of course, she was being her pure self, acting out of that place of purity and love. And she would try to console her daddy, and and then he would just say, like, no, like, you don't really love me. Go back inside the house. And so she would go back in the house, and guess what her mom would do? Would lock the door. You see, and so this literally the imprint is this. Should I be here? Should I be there? Should I be here? Should I be there? I don't know, right? Because I'm acting from that place of trust. I'm acting from that place of knowing. I'm acting from that purity. And yet the message is telling me, ooh, no, that's not true, right? And of course, as our baby mind just trusts basically whatever it is that our parents, who are doing their best, are giving us, right? And so then we start to operate from this false identity. And in this case, the false identity is I'm not worthy, right? So of course, anytime she would try and show up in her business and speak from her heart, or when she would try and advise her children, and speak from that just natural purity, that knowing, there would always be like, should I? Shouldn't I? Shouldn't I? Should I? Wait, maybe I should do it. Yeah, I know I should do it. And I go do it, but then, right? And so it's basically the body reliving that trauma, right? The physical body reliving that trauma. The mind, like, oh no, okay, this is feeling the same way again, where there's something emotional here, where I'm trying to, be the person that's trying to, help with the problem, but it's not working, right? And also energetically, there was just sort of like this grip, and energetically, her energy was kind of wrapping around her head, and basically like, okay, I have a lot of energy to give, but whenever I kind of direct it, it's sort of, I don't know what to do with it anymore. Okay. And so, let me know in the comments if, this resonates with you, if there's anything that you've gone through your life where you feel that kind of imprint in the body, you feel that in your mind, you feel that in your energy. And so one of the levels of decision making is from that separation, and separation from that knowing, from that place where it's like your heart is telling you, your intuition is telling you, but all of a sudden, these kind of recurring, moment in your life starts to cut you off, because it's like, oh, that voice that is pure, it's what the outside world is telling you is that's not safe. So what happens is you start to build this false identity structure so that you can protect yourself from that pain. You see, let me know if this is making sense. And so essentially, one of the things that we did with her is we went through that clearing, and it started to allow her to understand how she can give that child what she needed. okay? Because that's really all what it is when you have these past traumatic events. It's a practice of learning how to give that part in you that created this false identity and start to continue to allow that other part of you, that pure part of you, that part that is from that intuition to be trusted again, right? And then they can start to work in collaboration. And then that part of you that is naturally intuitive, naturally compelled, naturally moving from the heart, will start to learn how to be the driver of the bus again. And whenever that part of you, that false identity comes, because it always will, whenever we're in growth, okay, whenever we're moving towards our vision, that part of you will always say, hey, but you know what? Wait, I have needs, right? And I'm not feeling safe in my body. I have this kind of story in my head. I have this emotion. I'm not sure, and it's going to literally show up in your body in a certain way. It's going to literally show up in your mind a certain way. And energetically, it's going to have some sort of grip. It's in your body, right? And if we don't learn and master how to attend to those when they do show up, because they will, right? Especially when you're moving into growth, then they're going to be the ones that are constantly driving the bus. So let me know if this makes sense, okay? All right. So the other, number two, a level of consciousness that you can start making your, so basically, just to finish that story, basically at first, Nancy was unconsciously making decisions from that place of separation, from that place of separation consciousness. And again, it's not that she even knew it. It was just this unconscious separation that happened that put her in that survival mode and acted from that place to need to protect. Okay? So number two is self-consciousness. Now, self-consciousness is something that has been, we talked about this, something that has been imprinted in the body. You know when people say, oh, babies remember everything? They don't remember like, I said goo goo gaga. No, they remember the feeling in their cellular makeup. They feel, they understand. If there's something traumatic that happened in the womb, that happened through the birth canal, that happened even as they came into the world, and in some ways it's funny because they are in the dark, and all of a sudden they're like out into like this cold light like place with loud noises, and they can't hear the breathing of their mother. In some ways it's a bit of a trauma of coming into the out into the world as a human. We're like, what the? At first we were like floating this warm goodness, and it was all pure love, to like all of a sudden I have to like scream for air, and I'm being held and slapped on the bum and poked and right. So it's a very interesting thing that the body goes through, right? In all stages, when we have a body, right? When all of a sudden we start to develop a body, there are imprints, right? And so we have these memories in the body, and they're connected to the way we feel. It's an emotion, right? And so I call this a self-conscious. Again, it's just words and categories so you can understand, right? And so this self-conscious is super interesting, because especially if we're coaches, especially for healers, especially for therapists, we really understand, right, our pain. We really understand it. And depending on sort of where you work, if you work somatically, if you work energetically, if you work with the mind, you're going to know it on those levels. But what's important, and what I always teach all our clients, is that we have to understand them on all levels. But in the physical body, what's super interesting is sometimes we really get close to that, right? Because whenever we're working in healing modalities, we really get close and get to know our pain. And it's a beautiful thing, because we can't move towards where we want to go, into this place of healing, this place of growth, into this place that is our bliss, if we don't look there. But the thing is, sometimes what happens, and I call this like never ending healing loop, is that when you're in the spiritual practice, when you're in the healing modality, we sometimes get caught there. And we constantly feel like we need to heal our body. We need to heal the mind. We need to heal our energy. There's this constant healing loop. because we get to know the pain so well. So I'll give you a very interesting story. So one of our clients, Frankie, he was in the Marine Corps, okay, hardcore for like 22 decades, right, 18 years. And one of the things, and this is super fascinating to me, one of the things that they did in the Marine Corps is that they had to have a position of attention, right? And guess what? Even in their sleep, they were trained in to be in the position of attention, right? So this constant survival mode, right? And so the body started to really get disciplined and structured. And so there are aspects in your life that all of a sudden get imprinted, right? You know, if you got physically abused or if you got mentally abused, like the body will, have a certain kind of imprint, and even, there are certain abuse that is more subtle, and maybe you didn't get enough space, maybe you weren't seen, maybe you weren't heard, maybe there's this small little constant messages that were given to you, but there's some kind of continuous thing that the body's doing, and then we get to really know that. And then what happens after, for example, we're outside of that environment where we're no longer perhaps in this place where the body has to be in survival mode. And those are just examples, okay? In survival mode, the body knows it so well that it almost, of course, so when Frankie would go to bed, of course, what would you think would happen after he retired? He couldn't go to sleep, right? Because his body was literally trained for years and years and years and years to be in the position of attention, right? I had another client where her parents would always fight, and her sister, and she would be like in her bed and scared, and she'd be listening, and she'd be, just afraid there, right? And so the body kind of learns that. So then you have these environmental associations, and and especially if it's something that's like a thing that you do every day, like we go to our bed, which is usually for the, naturally we think, okay, it's just bed, going to sleep, right? But being in that environment and the body remembering, it's like the body doesn't realize, oh, okay, I don't have to protect myself anymore. I don't have to be in that protective state anymore. And so we get to really know that so well that we get habituated to it. And so sometimes we can describe it. We know exactly how it feels, let me know if this is true. So if you're in any kind of like healing modality, you know how it shows up in your body. You get this ache over here. You know how it shows up, like, in your movements. You know how it shows up when you talk. You know how it feels, right? But sometimes what happens, and this, if you were to work with me, we don't realize all of that energy and all of that structure, because it is a structure and it is a discipline. We are disciplined, even though maybe we didn't want to be disciplined in that way, or maybe we did, right? But we can start to literally allocate that structure, that same structure and that same energy into a place where, okay, when I go to my bed, I actually want to feel relaxed, right? And so this is, a deeper process that I go through with my clients to allow them to start to let the self-conscious know, because the self-conscious is automatic, okay? To start to learn how to trust the body, right? So in the first week, the one thing that we learn how to do is stay in the body and get grounded in the body. And yes, maybe the traumas are going to come up, but how can we do that in a way where we can learn how to calm the nervous system and start to switch the nervous system out of the fight, flight, or freeze, right, into a place where it feels safe, right? So sometimes you mentally, intellectually understand, maybe even energetically understand how to clear, but if the physical body is not being attended to and doesn't understand it's safe, and you don't develop that trust in your body, right? Because of course, when we've been through a lot of trauma in the body, we tend to disassociate from it. We tend to detach from it. We tend to just, not want to feel it, or maybe we numb out, right? And I've had many clients where, they do what's typically, given. It's like, okay, well, here you're able to sleep, so here's this medication, this prescription, and I'm not telling you not to do those things. I'm just saying that this is what commonly happens. But guess what? It never really gets to the root of where that is imprinted, and really be able to work with it whenever it shows up, and learn how to trust the body, right? And learn how to process it as it is being received, right? So it's these external triggers that naturally happen, right? And this is probably the biggest reason why spiritual entrepreneurs have such a big, hard time moving into their business, because all of a sudden it's revealing themselves again, just like when they did when they were a child, just like when they were their pure self, just when they were acting out of that place of love, right? And so it's all of a sudden the body's like, oh, no, no, no. I remember this. I remember when I exposed myself. Oh, I'm not doing that again. So the body will immediately like shut down, right? It's like F you. And then there's different parts, right, that will come up, right? And so I had a client where, she is like this rebel, and, her 14-year-old self would come up. So whenever we would talk growth strategies, she's like, I don't see myself doing that. No, and so it was her way of protecting, right? Because when she was younger, anytime she did well, right, she would get bullied, right? So all of a sudden that identity said, oh, okay, I'm going to actually not do well. I'm not going to show up as my very, studious self. I'm going to play a part so that I don't get, exiled from the tribe, because we as humans naturally have this need to be part of the tribe. Otherwise, well, back in the day, if we were outside of the tribe, that meant death, right? And so your body has this very instinctual way of working. And so when we can understand and tap into, right, the system of our body, and learn how to trust it, and learn how to move and work through emotions, which is what we do in week 2, then we can start to allow that process to unfold and allow it to continue to reveal itself. And guess what? When we do that, we can start to do it for ourselves, but also for our clients. Okay. And so with our clients, what I always do is I start to hear them talk about their experience. And guess what? I just simply extract. And this is how we start to distill their program, because it's all there and they're in flow, because they're talking about the thing they love. They're talking about their zone of genius. And they never really realize, oh, wait a minute, I have all of these processes, all of these methodologies that I've developed for that, trauma. Oh my God, it's right there. And so we start to distill it together so that we can create a program that allows your client to understand this is the before, right? Where loud noises would literally traumatize me, to after, where I actually can, be in that, and I can go to bed and actually feel rested, and not feel anxious, and actually sleep really well and feel safe. Do you see? So we start to really detect and understand, because your people are going to need to understand that. Because if we just say, I am a, sound healer, that sounds great, but it's not really going to tell the person who really needs, your expertise, what it is you do and what is the clear outcome that you're bringing them out of. Okay, if that makes sense. So let me talk about consciousness, number 3, the way we make decisions. This is what I call soul consciousness, okay? And we all know this, especially if you're in, the healing modality, or in some kind of transformation or some kind of methodology. There's a time, there's a place where we are simply hearing what our soul wants, right? And funny enough, the thing about the way the soul works is that when we are cleared of our traumas, or when we learn how to dislodge them so that they can continue to process themselves, right? there has to be a way of also clearing the mind. That's week 3. So when we're able to clear the mind, what starts to happen, and you'll see this naturally happening in your day-to-day life, or if you're just kind of washing dishes or you're in the shower, because you're not, problem solving usually. Okay, sometimes people are because they're so used to that. There's these natural downloads. And guess what? They're just like that. They're like, do that. Or they have a vision, or they hear something. So it depends how you receive information. Some people hear it, some people see it, but all of it is always like that. And if we don't learn how to hear the like that and trust the like that and take action on that intuition, that soul's whisper, and constantly then go back into the old imprint of the body, imprint in the mind, imprint in the energy, then guess what? That is always going to take precedence, always going to be louder. So in week 4, we learn how to continue to clear the mind so that there's not all of these stories, there's not all this information. Because if your false identity is hearing information, it will intellectually know, like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah, I should do that, right? But it's always going to be trying to heal the false identity. And it's never going to move from the place of truth, right? Which is your soul's consciousness. Your soul's consciousness is here to experience here, life on earth, this 3D reality, right? This life through this juicy body, this ability to feel all our feelings and literally interact with the world and be in the Garden of Eden. Okay, so that's a funny thing. That's really interesting. Is that we're sometimes get caught in thinking we want to be enlightened, but guess what? If you don't have a body, right, as a etheric being, then you're not going to be able to actually feel it and live it and have a progression of beginning and end. It's just all going to happen all at once, and we're not going to see it. We're not going to feel it. It's just going to be an experience. So coming into human life form, right? It's our soul living through a body. We get to experience life from a body. So many spiritual practitioners are, into this place of wanting to get into all of these different dimensions. But guess what? Those dimensions don't have that physical 3D reality, right? Those perspectives, okay? So when we understand how to clear the mind and start to trust that voice. So I did an interview with one of our clients, Kate, the power of choice, the power of decision. It's so funny. Right before our interview, she had a few minutes and she's like, oh, I really need, like, her intuition was saying, get a mentor for this video. I think she wanted some help with videography and some other technical things that she just didn't know about. And so she's like, okay, her intuition was like trying to do the thing, but it kept on saying loud and clear, because she hears it through her words, mentor. So what she did is she started being, right, and working as being in that consciousness of being. And so she just picked up the phone, and she had been trying to call these people for a while. Guess who answered the phone? The very person that she wanted to be mentored. She's like, hey, I really, appreciate your work, and I would love it if you would mentor me. And guess what happened? That person was like, well, I don't normally mentor people, but I'll mentor you. It's learning how to trust that part of you that knows, that gives you the next right step. And again, the next right step is always going to be, in real time. And so we want to start to learn, right, to hear that consciousness. And sometimes in real time, sometimes it's telling you, just be quiet. So when we don't hear this, we don't see a big vision, or we don't have the perfect answer, it's probably your soul saying, just take care of your body. Have more silence. Create more energetic space. And this is what we teach our clients, is how to utilize the body so that we're mastering the body, we're mastering the mind, and week 5, mastering our energy. Because if we don't know how to take all that energy that's coming through us and bring it into like the next obvious action, it's always going to stay up in the ethers. Let me know if that's you. Because, for example, Kate, she was dreaming about her business for 10 years. Okay. And I know, and many of our clients, have been doing what they're doing for decades and doing their thing, knowing they're amazing at it, knowing it's their zone of genius, knowing they're creating transformation, but yet they couldn't understand, how do I bridge that so that I'm not always underpaid and overworked. And underpaid is not, it doesn't mean a certain dollar amount. It means like, can I show up in my zone of genius with literally clear, crystal clear, abundant energy? And that takes financial abundance. Okay, because if you're doing all the things in your business and you haven't hired anybody in your business, I know we all do that. We all have to kind of be everything at the beginning of our business as a solo entrepreneur, trying to figure things out. But if we continue for decades like that, and we're constantly giving our energy to doing something so that we can save money, we're constantly doing all the housework, we're constantly doing every little thing for our kid. And I'm not saying not to do those things, but if we are not leveraging our time and not leveraging our energy in a way that helps us feel nourished, and we don't have a bank account that can help us get support, because we all know we did not go through this healing journey alone, right? And so it's the same principle. If you're going to build and grow a business in your vision, you need your supports, right? You need your coaches for business. You need your coaches for your somatic healing. You need your coaches for energy healing, but you also need, also teammates, right? To support you, because you just can't grow and do it all. It's kind of like trying to build a house by yourself. You could do it, but it's going to take you a long time. But imagine you had like even just one other person to lay the bricks. The work is going to go 2 times faster, right? And especially if you're hiring somebody in their zone of genius, then they're going to exponentially grow that aspect of what needs to be grown in your business. Okay, let me know if this is making sense. Yeah. And so we want to start to be able to receive from that place where we know we're allowed and we're permitted to receive, right? And in this 3D world, we receive money, but we also receive support. We also receive time. We also receive joy. Yeah. So there's many things that we receive. And if we're not able or willing to receive the help that we need, unfortunately, what's going to happen is we're going to feel overwhelmed. And what happens is we end up giving up on the dream, because we misread the situation, thinking, oh, maybe I'm not good enough for this. I'm not worthy, right? I'm not capable. I'm not perfect enough, right? I'm not significant. Nobody wants to hear what I have to say, right? And we're going from this false identity, right? But if we understand, oh, wait a minute, I'm allowed to dream a vision, right? And I'm allowed to receive with support. And when I do that, then everyone wins. My relationships win, my health wins because I have the resources and the time and the funds. My business wins because I have the resources, the time, and the fund to support me, physically, mentally, energetically, and with a strategy of the business to implement those strategies. And there is more ease, more grace, there's more freedom into what we do. And so this is the huge thing that we learn. If you were to work with me, this is what we do in the very beginning parts of the program, so that when we start to allocate, we literally start to allocate our energy into our business. We literally start to prioritize that zone of genius, because what happens is we unconsciously put that in the end. Okay, well, maybe when I clean my bathroom, maybe when I do my website, maybe when I get that another certificate, we have all of these conditional circumstances, and then we put our zone of genius last, right? Because all of those unconscious separation consciousness and self-consciousness are running the show. Yeah. Let me know if this is making sense. Okay, let me know in the comments. And so we learn how to utilize the energy that is already there, because energy doesn't go away, it just transforms. So we can literally, instead of having that energy be contracted around this healing loop, right, and they're in this physical body imprinted, we actually can take that and prioritize it and put it into our vision, put it into our business, put it into our life, put it into our joy, put it into what just makes us happy, because that's our longevity, right? And again, sometimes we might have this unconscious guilt or shame that we're not allowed to have that, because we've been habituated for so long, right, to be in a certain, in certain pain, and we sometimes can get stuck there, right? And that's often where my clients are, where they're kind of stuck there. They know, what it is that they need to do. They know that, there's something deep inside that needs to, get unblocked, but they don't necessarily know how to move themselves out of it, because the truth of the matter is we don't heal alone. This is what my mentor Milena always says. It's like, we don't heal alone. It's just the way it is. So I have my own coaches. I had this beautiful experience actually the other day, and I was meditating with a group of friends, and we all held hands. Guess what happened when we held hands? When you're meditating, if you have a meditation practice, or you're even just relaxing, you get distracted. Guess what happened when we held hands? All of us energetically were able to just calm down and relax. Because why? We felt supported. We were in a natural healing together. And so what I teach, the last thing I teach our clients is how to take their expertise. So we heal our deep core wounds. We take our expertise, we start to distill it based on, when you're in the flow, we just kind of start to build a program, because it's all there, right? It's all there. And then we start to take that expertise and I teach my clients how to get out of the dollar per hour model and into the premium space. So the premium space is developing this program very clearly of understanding your before, your after, your clear outcome, and charging a premium. So that means a 3K, 4K, 5K, 8K, 10K, however you want. Really, again, we are the creators of our life, and resources are infinite. And again, sometimes we are in the scarcity mindset, and we don't realize, wait a minute, life is abundant, right? And there's enough for everyone to go around. And I can develop enough abundance to help people in my vortex, and maybe someone all the way across the world if they need help, right? Who don't necessarily have the privileges that I do, right? And so we can take all of it and we can start to charge a premium, because what is the very first thing a business needs to continue? Cash flow, right? And it's like, sometimes in the spiritual community, like, money, it's like, we don't talk about that, right? If you don't want to talk about money, and you're telling me like, okay, yeah, I don't need money, but there's so much energy around it, then look again. Because if there, like anything, right? If you're like, okay, well, how so and so, I don't want to talk about that. Why? Because you have energy around it. Right? You have some sort of something, shame, blame, guilt around it. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to look at that and shift out of that, right? And understand that we are infinite beings, and use the tool, which is called money, to create abundance, not just for us. Because, well, first of all, we have to fill our cup. If my cup is empty and I'm here trying to give you some of my water and I don't have any, right? It's not gonna work. So we need, right, to feel nourished, right? And we need to feel supported in order to continue in our vision. Yeah. So let's just recap. Okay. So the three, we talked about, how we sometimes, because this is important to notice this in your life, because the first step in coaching is meet yourself where you're at. I can give you all of these answers, but if we don't understand where am I at now, right? So when you have a problem in your business, do you want anxious, you want to fix it right away, you go right into the problem solving and try to fix it, right? And maybe people please and get it right, get it perfect, or do you numb out, or you just like your physical body starts to like it gets depleted of energy, it just can't handle, right? And that already is a symptom that letting you know that you're not leveraging your energy. And we do this whole practice of leveraging, what I call the the energy leverage week, where we start to literally learn how to leverage your energy. And if right away you're drained just by the thought of your business, we're not leveraging our energy effectively. Okay. And then lastly, do you give it space? And this is usually that space where we trust, right? Whatever decision I make is the right decision. This is what my coach Gita Narkani always says to herself. Her mantra is, whatever decision I make is the right decision. And I think that's so beautiful. And so, because then it comes from that place of trust, yeah? And because there is no mistakes. There are no mistakes here on earth. It's just an experience. That's all it is, right? And then I talked about the 4 levels of spiritual growth, just because when you're in your zone of genius, you're often in a bit of a higher level of spiritual growth. But when it comes to your business, because you don't understand the core wounds that are holding you back, you're often in number 1, victim state consciousness. Number 2, I am the creator, right? Number 3, it's happening as me. I'm channeling through it, or it's happening as me, right? I'm being it. I'm just being, yeah. And so then the 3 levels of conscious decision making, of making decisions in your business, come from number 1, separation consciousness, where it's from that false identity, what we call our ego, right? That false identity. We talked about the 6 different false identity structures, okay? And then number 2 is self-consciousness, where this is an imprint in the body, right? Where it's an automatic, it's like your automatic nervous system starts to learn, how it's supposed to react to certain environments, when sometimes the environment at one point was not safe to now it's safe, but yet we're still in the pain. We're still kind of habituating around the pain and never really deciding or moving towards what we really want, and knowing even how to do that. Yeah. And then lastly, our soul's consciousness, making decisions from that place of knowing, even though it's scary, even though those parts of us are like, no, stay back, that's not a safe place, back up, right? Even though those parts will show up, right? And that's actually a good sign. When there's resistance, right? When there's a lot of resistance, it means that where you want to go is right here, right? And so all of those parts of resistance are like, okay, you got to see me, you got to look at me, and we have to just look at it. And once we start to really learn how to collaborate with those aspects of ourselves, with those unconscious imprints in the body, mind, and energy, and have those parts come to the table and give them what they need so that they feel safe and they can get out of survival mode, and you can move from your soul's consciousness and trust that soul's consciousness, then you start to move forward in that action. You start to develop that courage, right? To fundamentally, what I teach all our clients is fundamentally, you want to trust yourself. I'm just giving you kind of like the formula, the guideline, but ultimately, at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, your probably biggest goal, and that's as a human being, is to be able to trust yourself, because you're the only one that knows your truth, right? And so if any of this resonates with you, you can DM me and let me know that you want to come on a breakthrough yoga discovery call. And what I do is I send you an application and I ask you about your spiritual business. And so I can really look at where you're at. And so then on the call, We'll look at where you're stuck. Where is that core wound that's holding you back? Sometimes we start the 3-level clearing on the call. It depends how it goes or how I feel about it. Or we started in the very first week. But we get to really what's the thing that you didn't make the connection that's holding you back. And then we work through how are we gonna do this, right? How are we gonna distill your program so that finally it's crystal clear for you and your clients? How are we going to speak to your clients in a way that speaks to an understanding of their pain, an understanding where they want to go, an understanding of they're here and you're going to get them to that other place because you've brought yourself through that. So you already have the asset. So I just continue to utilize and show you what you already have. Yes, we can continue to do the trainings and all that. That will never stop, but we'll want to work with what's already there and really start to trust that because it's been the thing that's been guiding us our whole life, this whole time anyway. It's what brought us here today. Yeah. So if that sounds like something that resonates with you, then Olga, my teammate, is going to put a link to my calendar and you can simply press that, or you can literally DM me directly and say, Jamie, I'm ready for a breakthrough yoga coaching call. And we'll start that coaching process. And of course, I'm going to look at your application and see if there's a readiness, because there has to be some sort of readiness as to where you are in your journey for, us to kind of start the collaboration process. So hopefully this is helpful. If you have any questions, write me in the comments. I'll come back and I'll answer them all. Thank you so much. Again, I am on a new software, so I can't see who's here. And I might not use this one anymore because it keeps on cutting off, unfortunately. So love you guys. I'll see you guys next week, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye, guys.